Okay, I'm going to tell you when we are just checking to make sure that everything's going okay. And I actually think we are live. So, Dion Wilson, thank you so much for joining me on Streaming Sats.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
W-
This is my first official Bitcoin podcast.
Never before? It's your first time being on anyone talking about Bitcoin?
This is my first time going live online. Where we at? Block 891-956.
That's your Genesis block. First
That's
time
my
you've
Genesis
spoken
block.
publicly about. So,
There we go.
introduce yourself to the world of Bitcoin. What first got you interested in the technology?
Well, let's see. I first found Bitcoin in 2017, and I found Bitcoin on honestly by chance. Surfing the internet. I'm a personal trainer. So at the time, I was really looking for ways to. I had just started my personal training company, and I was looking for ways to build business credit and how to be a better, run a better business. And I kept seeing these pop ups on, like I was looking at YouTube videos on the side for Bitcoin. And, because I kept seeing it, I said, well, let me just click on one of these things. And that was my first introduction to Bitcoin. Is seeing a video about it, still didn't quite understand it, but I decided to watch a few videos. I saw some interesting people talking about it, and I said, this it sounds like a great idea. I don't know how legit it is, but it sounds like it could be something nice. So I decided to buy a little bit, and this was towards the end of 2017, right? So we had that nice bull run. That's when I discovered Bitcoin, and then we got the crash, the pullback. And I freaked out because I still didn't understand Bitcoin, what it was at the time. And I said, oh boy, I just lost my money. But luckily, it wasn't a lot of money. So I was okay with that. I understood the fact that you shouldn't invest anything that you're not willing to lose. And that was my initial concept of Bitcoin, right? I'm only investing what I'm willing to lose. Um, and then I kept going back and forth with Bitcoin probably for about a year or two. And then somewhere around 2023, um, I came across Soft Wars scrolling through X, which I think was still Twitter at the time, and found a PDF of, I don't know, Jason's Lowry Soft War, and read it. And once I read that, everything changed. I was fooling around with the shit coiners. I immediately started selling everything and was like, Bitcoin is the answer. That was kind of my light bulb moment. And then from then on, I just, all of my free time, all of my extra time, learning about Bitcoin, listening to different people, trying to really understand it. And then I discovered Jeff Booth, and listening to Jeff Booth speak. I don't know if you ever listened to him,
Yeah, a lot.
but
Ego Death
he
Capital.
speaks about, when he speaks about a deflationary world and how the world really should work, and how the advancements in technology when we're creating products should make everything in the world deflationary. And it just totally made sense. And I just said, my gosh, the last 40 years, I've had it all wrong. And I know I'm not the only one, but this is really how the world should work, which is really how a free market economy should work. Everything should be deflationary. We should be living in a world where, as humans become more advanced, as technology becomes more advanced, and we get better and better at building and offering services and products, everything should be going down. But that's not the system that we've lived in. And that was my shining moment in realizing that it's either Bitcoin or nothing, or we are in a failed system and we have no answers to get out. Um, so that's the story of my Bitcoin journey. And now I am, I guess you can call me a Bitcoin maxi. And I make it a point to try to have an orange pill moment with anybody that I come in contact with that hasn't heard about Bitcoin. Or maybe they've heard about Bitcoin, but they've only heard about it through mainstream media, which gives it a whole different light and perspective. It's an asset that's highly volatile. Bitcoin is not an asset. Bitcoin is a better form of money. It's a better form of transferring the value of information between humans and storing the value of that information. That's what Bitcoin is. And that's not the message that's being put out there. But once you really understand it, and once you understand that time is a key factor and having that low time preference, and it's the next level. And you don't mind having a low time preference because you know that you aren't being cheated. You know that your value, the energy that you spent economizing, is not being taken away from you. It's being stored, it's being preserved for when you need to use it. And that's a beautiful thing. I mean, it really changes your whole perspective of life, your anticipations of life. It gives you just a whole new outlook. And that's where I am now with Bitcoin. And I wish that, and I am working on getting more people in that position. Yeah.
So let me recap, okay, see if I got this right. In around 2017, you were a personal trainer. You were in the fitness world, and
And I still am.
you still are. Okay,
Yes.
you're still
Yes.
working in the same industry. But around that time,
Yes.
watching YouTube, you saw in your side panel recommended videos about Bitcoin, and then you just clicked over onto them. Were you already at that time interested in financial topics and that? Why was
Yeah.
Bitcoin part of your recommended videos?
Yeah. I would say probably because, yes, I was looking at different financial products like, ways to get ahead. What are good investments? How do we go about storing our wealth? How do we go about, just being, a better person and understanding finance, and what are the right avenues? Because I don't know how things are in South Africa, but in the American education system, there's no one teaching you about wealth. There's no one teaching you how to preserve value. There's no one teaching you how you should view money, how you should spend money, how you should go about saving money. What are assets? Or even what are taxes? There's none of that until maybe you go into university level where you're now paying for an education or going into debt in order to find out how to utilize money. But the system is not designed to teach you how to navigate your way through. So it was a big learning curve for me, and that's where I was. I had finally reached that point where I wanted to know more for myself. So it was me trying to better myself, trying to think outside of the box, trying to learn things that I had not been taught, that led me to Bitcoin. And I'm so thankful for it.
Okay, understood. So, would you say that you were like very quickly converted and orange pilled into being a Bitcoiner, or you also had to go through your journey of shitcoining?
I had to go through my journey of shitcoining. I was not convinced at first. Like everybody, I thought it was a way to get rich quick. So if I buy some of this, number go up, I make a lot of money and I sell. And when you see the shitcoin market, and you get a 400, 500% return in the next day, it looks very attractive, especially when you don't know anything about what you're doing. So, yes, I definitely spent, I would say, a year or so trading shit coins, trying to be the first to learn out about a new altcoin so that I could be the first one in and the first one out. Um, it worked sometimes, but not most of the time. And but I never let go of Bitcoin. I knew that Bitcoin was the number one. I knew that Bitcoin was obviously the biggest deal, but I didn't understand why. And once I got to that point of understanding why Bitcoin, then I said, okay, the rest of this is just a game. It's just a gimmick. So, that's what happened.
Okay, got it. So then you like orange pilled yourself, and though you still work as a fitness instructor, a personal trainer, do you get paid in Bitcoin or are you still getting paid like Cash App and in dollars?
So I'm glad you asked that question because I have made a serious effort to try to get some of my clients to pay me in Bitcoin. And so far, no one has paid me for personal training in Bitcoin, even though I've given them links to do so. I've offered discounts. And now I've even made a post where I'm telling them that if you decide to pay me in Bitcoin, I never have to increase my rate. I will never have to ask you for a raise to pay me more fiat because Bitcoin is not inflationary. So I'm hoping at some point that will send a message. I'm hiring this man for his services, and now he's telling me that he's never going to ask me to pay him an increase in rate. I would think that's got to make a light bulb go off. So I just recently made that post. Let's see how, if anyone bites on that.
So
But yeah,
are you going to price your services in satoshis or in US dollars if you go that route?
well, I'm still pricing in US dollars only because we're still, heavily in the US dollar market. And I don't have any clients that would really understand if I told them that your session is going to be 30,000 stats, 40,000 stats. They would look at me like I'm crazy. So, I give them the dollar amount and then I transfer it to Bitcoin. And then at some point, once they understand what we're doing and why I'm asking them what we do, then we'll get further down the hole. And then hopefully I'll say, it's all stats. We don't even have to talk dollars anymore, you know. And eventually I think we will get there because I do spend a lot of time talking to my clients about the fiat system. My approach is to talk to them about the system that they understand. I don't really need to talk to you about Bitcoin. Let's talk about the system that we're in. Let's talk about how the money supply is constantly being inflated. Let's talk about the fact that no matter how much money you're spending, you still feel like the quality of life is deteriorating, you know. And I work with a lot of high end clients, well to do clients. So the dollar amount is not an issue for them. But they're smart enough to see that the services that they're paying for, even the facilities that we're using, the quality is going down. And it all has to do with the inflation, right? When we inflate the supply to the point where people can't afford anything, then we get irrational behavior. We get people doing things that they wouldn't normally do in order to survive, in order to make it. Um, you get people offering services at rates that they normally wouldn't, but they have no choice because that's the only way to make enough in order to live off of. And, being in New York City, there are thousands of businesses, thousands and millions of small businesses. especially in the restaurant business, in the food industry, in the service industry. There's plenty of service industry businesses, so you can see it. Every day that I'm going down the street, I see businesses closing. And now it's gotten to the point where you're starting to see businesses that you would consider staples, businesses that have been in the communities for over 20, 25, 30 years. Now these places are going out of business. They can no longer afford to sustain themselves. As the inflation takes off, more and more people can't afford to come to their stores. They have to raise their rates and charge more money. Now, the salaries are not keeping up with the inflation, and it's really becoming an issue, and you can see it everywhere. You can see it in the homeless population in New York. There's over 8 million people that live in New York City. I ride the trains, and I ride the trains early in the mornings, all right, because I do personal training. So I'm up at the crack of dawn. I'm up with the construction workers, the medical staff, people that work in the education department. We're the early risers. So when I'm up and I'm on public transportation early in the morning, and besides the working people, the only other people that we see are the homeless people. And I'm seeing more and more homeless people every day, every week. There's more and more homeless people on the streets. There are more and more homeless people sleeping on public transportation at night. So you can literally see the system is breaking right in front of your eyes. Now, most people are ignoring it. They don't see it as that. They just see it as, oh, this person hasn't found a job. This person can't take care of themselves. But it's more and more and more and more people. And at some point, we have to ask ourselves, are there really that many people in society who just don't want to be productive, who just have just woken up one day and said, you know what? I'm just not going to be a productive member of society, and whatever happens to my life, so be it. I don't think that's the case. I believe that there are more good people than bad people. There are more people who want to do well than do bad. But people are finding themselves in situations where they can't overcome. They can't get above the wave. They can't get their head out the water. They take one step up and they're being pulled right back down. That's the system we're living in. And having Bitcoin and being in Bitcoin for a period of time allows you to start to see outside of that system. And it's sad. It's really sad when you think about it and you're looking in. And I consider myself, I tell people, I'm trying to save you. It's not me trying to make you believe in Bitcoin. I just don't want you here for the party to be a Bitcoiner, to join this cult that you think it is. It's not a cult. It's a better way of life. It's a better form of money. It's a way to preserve who you are. You know, you are being undervalued. You are being devalued. Who wants to be devalued? See it in the homeless population, but what about even the people who are doing extremely well? You may have been one of those people that have gotten ahead of most people, but you're still being devalued. Even though your value is greater than most, it's still less than what it should be or less than what it could be. And that's a hard thing to see if you've been in the system for so long. It's just hard to see it, you know.
How do you think Bitcoin standard could help solve the homelessness crisis around the world?
By giving everybody back the value of their time, the real value of your time, right? There are some people who are very ambitious in life who are overachievers. And those people deserve more. They worked harder, they're very ambitious, they get it. But I want to think that 90% of the population are willing to do just enough to have a decent standard of living, Not everybody will be rich. Not everybody will be rich. But if you consider yourself a working member of society and you get up and you go to work every day, your cost of living should be enough for you to be able to live and not have to worry about tomorrow. So Bitcoin is going to create that economy for everyone where you can be in that situation. Even for those who do not have, hopefully we will get to a point where there are enough Bitcoiners, because I believe that eventually Bitcoiners will have the final say so. And if you're a person who hasn't acquired any Bitcoin, more than likely you're going to end up working for someone who has Bitcoin and you're going to want to earn Bitcoin. So for those maybe homeless populations, they'll end up working for someone to earn Bitcoin. And as they're earning their Bitcoin, they will be able to build a better life for themselves because Bitcoin is going to create a deflationary world. We have no choice because there's only 21 million, and there's less than that considering how many Bitcoins are being lost or will never be seen again. So Bitcoin is, we say, it is going to enforce a deflationary world, which will be a better standard of living for everyone. Just like the inflationary world has devalued everyone from those at the top to those at the bottom, Bitcoin will return the value to everyone from those at the bottom to those at the top in reverse. The only thing you need is time because Bitcoin is the value of your time. So the more time you have, the more time you have to preserve your value in a Bitcoin standard, the better your life will become. And better doesn't necessarily mean that you will be more wealthy, but you will be able to sustain your lifestyle. And that's really what we want. Every man deserves a chance to live the life that he chooses, whether he's extremely ambitious or whether he just wants to do enough to live, to survive. You should be able to do that. And right now, the system is not designed for that. If things keep going the way they're going right now, the homeless population, I'm going to wake up one day in New York and there's going to be more homeless people on the train than people paying to actually ride the train to their jobs. So this is where we are. Bitcoin, like I said, either Bitcoin is the answer or we don't have one because the current fiat system that we are in is not the answer. And we're at this turning point in history, which will show you that things have to change and things are changing. The US dollar has been the reserve currency for quite some time now, and it's run its course. And we can see with everything that's happening in the market right now, with the trade wars that we're now in the midst of, this is the beginning of the end for the US dollar. That's where we are.
So you being at ground zero in the US at the moment, is there any like first-hand impact that you're feeling from the tariffs, or is it still very early days and you're just hearing the news about the turmoils in the market?
Well, I personally don't feel the impact, but I know others who are feeling the impact. Um, Especially if you're part of that baby boomer community, those who are retiring in the next 3, 4, 5 years, they're feeling the impact. They woke up this week and they open up their equity portfolios and they're not happy. They've taken a hit and it's not over. So, that community is the one that I really strongly feel is going to be affected the most right now. Our younger population are being affected simply because they aren't generating the income to preserve wealth the way they should because of inflation. Younger people are not generating income and being able to store, preserve their wealth because everything costs more. So, on that end, they aren't being able to save enough. For those who were able to save enough, the older population, now they're on a fast track to being devalued. That's what's happening in the system. So right now, I'm hitting the panic button to get out of the system. I'm hitting the panic button for everybody. It is time to get out of the system. Bitcoin is here. It has been here for over 15 years now. It has proven itself enough for you to understand that either Bitcoin is going to be your store of value or you're going to be devalued by staying in the government issued fiat system. It's pretty simple. What the hard part is wrapping your head around it and accepting it. I saw a nice meme the other day that said, it was a logo of a Bitcoin with an escape button with the escape key underneath of it. So Bitcoin is here. All you got to do is press the escape button to get out of the system. But for most of us, our egos are in the way. So for some of us, we're going to feel more pain than others because pain is usually what will make you do things differently when you've experienced enough pain. And for some of us, we have a high tolerance. So, we're willing to take on more pain. Um, but for us that don't like pain, like myself, we're going to get out as soon as we can. um, and that's what we really all should be trying to do. And educating yourself on the system. Like I said, I want you to understand Bitcoin. I want you to understand how to run a node. I want you to understand that Bitcoin mining is the most important aspect of Bitcoin. But right now, more importantly, I need you to understand the system that you're already in and it is failing you. And even if if you don't choose Bitcoin, what is your answer for the broken system that you're in? Do you have an answer? Are you in denial that the system is even broken? The first part of recognizing an addiction is being able to admit that you have an addiction, that there is a problem. The first part of recognizing that the fiat system is going to be broken is you recognizing that the system is broken and you're addicted to the system and you can't get out of the system because you've been in it for so long and you're afraid to let go. So once you can accept that, Bitcoin is about facing truth. If you can face your truth, look yourself in the mirror, you can accept Bitcoin. You have to be able to accept the truth. That's what it is. And
Sure.
for some of us, it's hard.
Wilson, you have brought up lots of deeply topics that one really needs to think deeply about. But I wanted to talk to you about this place that we met, the Orange Pill app. It's an app that I joined some time ago. Can you tell me a bit more about it, please, and your role
So
in it?
just like you, the Orange Pill app is the next layer of Bitcoin on the social level, right? So Bitcoin is our peer-to-peer electronic cash, medium of exchange, store of value. Now, who do we want to have that medium of exchange with? Who are our peers? How do we connect with those people? Well, that's where Orange Pill app comes into play. Orange Pill app is for those who have maybe gone down the rabbit hole to a certain extent, or maybe you've come to the realization that Bitcoin is the answer. But like myself, you're in an environment where very few people understand that. But you know that there are others out there who think and understand what you understand. And Orange Pill app is the place to connect with those people. So it's Orange Pill app has kind of been like a savior for me because, when you understand something to this level and no one else around you understanding it, and not only do they not understand it, they're not willing to really sit and conversate and take the time to understand it. You start to feel like alone. I know a lot of Bitcoiners who just simply feel alone. Well, Orange Pill app is changing that. It is now the Orange Pill app is giving people, Bitcoiners, a place to connect with each other, to share our thoughts, to share our experiences with people who are like minded. And the wonderful thing about Orange Pill app is that I can connect with people like you, Haroon, all the way in South Africa, and I'm in New York. I don't know if we would have been able to do that without the Orange Pill app. Sure, we have X and now we have the Nostra feed, but it would take a little bit more of diving in and really being on there a while to kind of make a more of a personal connection with people. Orange Pill app gives you that more of an intimate personal connection, even on a global scale. Right now, we have over 15,000 members. But when you are connecting on Orange Pill app individually, when you connect with someone and you chat with someone or you join a chat group, you feel more of a personal connection. You feel more of an intimate setting. And you can feel this way with people who are thousands of miles from you, all the way on the other side of the ocean, on the other side of the world. So that's what I really, really like about Orange Pill app, and I'm grateful for it. It's also wonderful if you travel. I actually was recently in South Africa, and I was able to connect. First, and one of the first things I did when I got there was open up the Orange Pill app to see how many Bitcoiners were in my vicinity. Who could I connect with? Now, I wasn't there long enough. It was a short trip for me, but I was able to meet a local Bitcoiner, and we actually talked about getting together. They were going to show me a place that accepted Bitcoin, but I just didn't have enough time in my schedule. But if had I had enough time, it would have been a wonderful thing, and it would have been thanks to the Orange Pill app. So I really like that about the Orange Pill app. Once you understand Bitcoin, now you want to be able to connect with people who understand Bitcoin the way you do, who want to live in Bitcoin, and who really value their time, their energy. And it's a wonderful thing.
You you're not just a user of the Orange Pill app, are you? You have like some official role.
Yes, so I am actually working directly with the Orange Pill app as their New York City ambassador. So I am here on the ground in New York, um, spreading the word about the Orange Pill app, going to Bitcoin meetups, connecting with Bitcoiners who may not be on the app, who may not have heard about the app, and introducing them to the app. Also, we're hosting events here in the city to try to get more social engagement with Bitcoiners, because really the Orange Pill app is a way for Bitcoiners to connect so that we can do the next level of connection, which is actually in person, right? So we want to be able to bring Bitcoiners together face to face, have social gatherings, have outings, do things that Bitcoiners like to do. So right now, I'm working on with a Bitcoin walk that I have scheduled. That's going to go in a few weeks. I'm really excited about. This is going to be the first time doing something like this where we're getting together Bitcoiners in the city, and we're going to do a walk through the city. Actually, It's going to be a 2.5 mile walk from Union Square, which is a popular section in the city, and we're going to walk all the way down through the financial district, which is where Wall Street is. A lot of our big banks are, and people will see us. We're going to be in our Bitcoin gear. We're going to be in some Orange Pill app gear. And, seeing is also believing, right? So imagine, New York is a place where we have all kinds of events. Everybody has some kind of parade, some kind of gathering, everybody that has some kind of group or whatever they're into, there's probably a circle or a community here in New York. So my overall goal would be to really take this on a global scale, like a New York City marathon. This is something I want to do every year and get more and more participants to come from around the globe, Bitcoiners, joining together to walk through the city just to showcase who we are, that we are about a free economy, people being able to choose a better form of life, people who value their time, people who don't want to be cheated, out of their hard work and everything that they've done. So we're going to make a statement. And the goal is to do this thing bigger and bigger and bigger. That's one event that I've got planned that I'm really looking forward to. I'm also interacting through the Orange Pill app. We have a lot of local Bitcoin meetups. We have a Brooklyn Bitcoin meetup. We have a Jersey City Bitcoin meetup. We have a Harlem Bitcoin meetup. And then, we have the Bitcoin Mecca, as I call it, PubKey here in New York City, which is an awesome spot where you get a lot of prominent people in the Bitcoin place, a lot of influencers. They come and they host events at PubKey. So Orange Pill app is in the, I'm helping Orange Pill app in the middle of all of that in New York City and trying to spread the word of Bitcoin, Orange Pill people in Bitcoin, get Bitcoiners to come together and just have a good time, because a lot of Bitcoiners, like I said, we just feel so disconnected from the world. So the Orange Pill app is really giving people a space and opportunity to feel good about the choices that you've made, because it almost sometimes feels like you're being isolated or secluded for choosing to not be devalued.
It's like you are being minimized because you are looking out for yourself, but because
Right.
everyone else is not at that same level, they're excluding you.
They're excluding us. Hopefully, Orange Pill app will change that. Yeah, that's the idea. Allow Bitcoiners to connect, grow our community strong, and then put the pressure on those who are outside of the Bitcoin standard.
So, do you spend your Bitcoin at all, or are you only saving all of your Bitcoin at the moment, putting it in cold
That's a
storage?
wonderful question. I'm so glad you asked me that. I believe in using Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. Yes, Bitcoin is the greatest store of value, and we should all be storing our value in Bitcoin. But if we really want Bitcoin to be the standard, if we want to live on a Bitcoin standard, if we want to value the world in stats and not in dollars, we have to use Bitcoin. We have to make it the medium of exchange. We have to use Bitcoin to save ourselves, to save all the people in the world divided on all of these different government issued currencies. If we want to build a better world, if we want to build a global free economy, we can only do that if we're all operating on the same medium of exchange. And Bitcoin is that medium of exchange. Now I know right now they're saying, "Oh, we're early in the game, and everyone should just be storing Bitcoin as a value." But people forget Satoshi made a very good quote that once enough Bitcoin has been issued, Bitcoin should be used as a medium of exchange. And those who are mining Bitcoin and verifying transactions will be supplemented through the transaction fees. The transaction fees alone will be enough to incentivize validating the blocks. It doesn't have to be the specific Coinbase fee of collecting Bitcoin. It is right now because there are not enough Bitcoin transactions. There's not enough medium of exchange. Matter of fact, this past week, through all the turmoil of the trades, the mempool has been very light. The Bitcoin transactions have been probably at an all-time low for a while now, which is not really good. We need Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. We need people transacting in Bitcoin. Now, I understand, we got regulations and, governments suppressing the use of Bitcoin. But this is now why we have the Lightning Network, right? We have eCash, we have Liquid. So we're working on these layer twos to make Bitcoin more valuable and more ways to use it as a medium of exchange. But we have to really, really start engaging in Bitcoin. So what I'm doing right now is I'm using Bitcoin not as much as I want, but if I can find ways to find transactions and pay for things in Bitcoin, I do pay for things in Bitcoin.
What's
I
the last
recently,
thing you paid
I
for in
recently,
Bitcoin?
I was great question. I just recently got an Avalon miner that I paid in Bitcoin for. Um, I signed up for the Orange Pill app. I paid in Bitcoin. So there are now becoming more and more use cases. When I go to PubKey, sometimes I pay in Bitcoin. Um, we should be using Bitcoin. We really should be using Bitcoin. There's enough Bitcoin that's been issued. 95% of Bitcoin has already been issued. That's more than enough for us to be at a point where we're using Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. We just have to change the narrative behind that. Hopefully, the regulations that will be coming sooner than later will also help with that.
Is there lots of opportunities in New York City to spend your Bitcoin?
No, there are not a lot of opportunities. Right now, we have PubKey. There's also a restaurant uptown that we actually use for the Harlem Bitcoin meetup called Safari. They also accept Bitcoin. Forgive me for not knowing the name, but we have a wine shop in Brooklyn, accepts Bitcoin. We have a deli in Long Island that is on the Orange Pill app. That's another great feature on the Orange Pill app is that merchants that accept Bitcoin can be listed on the Orange Pill app. So right now we have a few in the New York area that are listed on the Orange Pill app as merchants that accept Bitcoin, but not enough. That's something that we need more of, more merchants accepting Bitcoin. And I understand the problem is it's really about regulations, regulations and taxes, right? So I'm hoping sooner than later there'll be more clarity on that and we'll have more businesses accepting Bitcoin because I do know that even a few of the businesses that do accept Bitcoin, when they accept the Bitcoin, they're just holding it. They're not adding it to their balance sheet. They're not turning it around and using it because they probably aren't clear because the regulations aren't clear on whether they can spend it, how much would you be paying in taxes on the Bitcoin that someone just recently gave you. So that's more things that we have to get around to. But I am totally advocating for everyone to use Bitcoin. The more we use it, the number goes up as well. We have to make Bitcoin valuable. It is valuable as a store of value, Now, let's add another level of value to Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. Let's increase that level of value to Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree with you. You know, obviously,
Yeah.
wouldn't say obviously, but here in South Africa, we do have more opportunities, at least one for myself, in that one of the big retailers where I do my
Yes.
shopping for groceries, they accept Bitcoin. So at the very least, I can pay for my groceries in Bitcoin.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. One thing I just forgot to mention, the Orange Pill app, we also recently got the Lightning wallet. Now, since we've gotten the Lightning wallet, I probably have sent more Bitcoin just for the sake of, being able to do the geo zaps, the proximity zaps. I've probably sent out more Bitcoin to people that I don't know in the last couple of months than I ever have. So features like what the Orange Pill app has added will add more use cases to Bitcoin, right? And I think it's going to be a wonderful way to also be able to donate in Bitcoin. How many cases do we have where we want to sponsor someone? We have uh, emergency situations where people need funding. We have catastrophic events that happen in countries, and we want to fund people. We want to send them money. Bitcoin, Lightning Network, Orange Pill app makes it so easy to do that, you know? So I think once we really understand what the features are that we actually can use Bitcoin for right now, that's going to add another level to that sudden moment of Bitcoin going from gradual to suddenly. Because right now we have a lot of good tools and features in Bitcoin that we aren't even utilizing yet. We haven't really, wrapped our head around the use cases. But right now that, we can use Bitcoin to help people. We just need the regulations to say, yes, this is our best form of medium of exchange. This is our best store of value. Let's use this. Because we're in a position right now where we could take Bitcoin and make a lot of things happen a lot faster than trying to send fiat around the world,
What
even for
regulations, in your opinion, would be the best thing to happen to Bitcoin?
taxes. That's the main concern I hear from most people is they're concerned about taxes, how much they owe in taxes, how to calculate taxes. You know, that's probably the biggest drawback from people actually spending Bitcoin is
Yo-
that they don't want to end up in a situation where they're being audited by the government.
So you're saying that because Bitcoin is considered a commodity and you incur capital gains whenever you
Yes,
sell it to spend it,
right.
that's the biggest problem. So if it's treated as a currency, as just something you're spending, so you're not incurring a tax incident when you're actually spending it, that would be the one major piece of legislation that will open up the use of Bitcoin.
That would totally be a great use case to the Bitcoin. Like if we could get some legislation that says tax free on Bitcoin, everyone will start using Bitcoin, especially the people that already have it. I think that's really a key element for us. Now, there's also the other aspects of the coin joins and things like that of mixing Bitcoin. That's probably another thing that I'm not sure how it's going to pan out, right? So, because we have many people who have KYC Bitcoin off of exchanges that have all of your information. And then you have many people who are doing peer to peer Bitcoin, who are getting their Bitcoin non KYC. And for example, that's an issue in countries like the United States, right? So if you are a person who've gotten most of your Bitcoin through a KYC exchange, and now you're transacting with Bitcoin that is non KYC, and you're mixing those coins, we don't have regulations, but we know that that could be an issue as well. So I would say that's probably the second run up problem that we have with really transacting in Bitcoin is keeping track of where your coins came from. And that's, I know, more so on the government. That's, because they want to basically know everything. This was a wonderful thing about Satoshi and the Bitcoin is trying to have everyone have some form of privacy. So we do have that synonymous factor of Bitcoin, but when transacting in a government system, that's where we run into problems because they want to know who spent the Bitcoin. They want to know who gave the Bitcoin to who. What did you use the Bitcoin for? How did you acquire the Bitcoin? So that's the other issue. So we need tax regulations and where did you get your Bitcoin from regulations?
Dion, we've been speaking for almost an hour. I want to thank you so much for being on my show. Thank you for breaking your big podcast V to be on streaming sets.
Thank you. I love it. Thank you for having me.
I hope to speak to you again, catch up with you in a few weeks, a few months' time, just to see what's been happening with you, all of your activities in New York City. And maybe you can tell me about the walk that you have done already.
Yes, I will. Absolutely. I'll keep you informed. Hope we get a good turnout and we'll take lots of pictures as well.
Please do and share it. We'll talk more about Nostra and all of that at that time. But
Yes.
enjoy the rest of your afternoon and thank you very much.